Back at it again, it's time for some more High Elves Abridged. In the previous part things went kind of slowly because we just had to fight tons of field battles all over the place to try and reduce the number of enemy armies that were around. We did though take two territories, one in the east and one in the west. They're both just tenuously held with enemies still all over the place around them. We're going right into another field battle now, because at Heyrat, the one army that was standing outside the castle has walked off, but there's just another one here now. I think this was the army that was in our back lines for a while and maybe came back towards the front line at some point. Overall, nothing too difficult, similar to what we've seen recently in other battles, but this one did actually go differently to other field battles. Firstly, we had this nice hill. This may or may not actually help us, because while being uphill gives us extra range, we can't really see the enemy and the lines of sight are awkward. Or the lines of fire I should say, because we're trying to arc shots over the hill's curve and our sniper ballistas can do it, but maybe the archers are missing more often because of that. But the real difference is that after the enemy walked up the hill towards us, we saw a protracted skirmish phase instead of the usual just charging in. And that's going to work to our advantage because we rarely actually get through all of the arrows on our archers. If the enemy are willing to just stand there, then we can take down a whole bunch of them before the fight really starts. They are going to be slowly killing us with their archers, but a lot of our stuff is pretty resistant to arrow fire. We've got lots of units with shields and armoured archers, so we can just stand around, tank whatever they do to us, and what we'll do back to them will be much worse, especially when the catapults get their lucky hits and take out crowds of enemies. We take down a lot of their special units like their berserkers, and their things that are weak against arrows like the reavers take large numbers of casualties, meaning that once we're finally out of arrows and we start charging in, lots of units are already on shaken morale, so we're not going to have to do all that much to actually get through this one. The added bonus to having all of your archers use up their arrows is it's more strategically simple to decide what to do with them. As in, you don't really gain any advantage by leaving them at the back to shoot throughout the battle. Instead, you can just commit to charging them in and doing rear attacks to get morale shocks and stuff, so that's nice and easy. And what we see is that most of the battle is just us charging down the hill, killing routing units. The battle doesn't end for a long time because their berserkers couldn't rout. But by the time we finally kill all the berserkers, everything else was routing and we can end the battle right there and then for a really good result, about half the usual losses, and the enemy army is down. Just what we need. We could go on and fight another field battle immediately against that other army. Instead, I set up a watchtower to keep an eye on them and then went back into the walls. I'd rather have a siege defense, not only because it might be good in terms of the numbers, but it might be more interesting to do in terms of gameplay. That said, we've got another field battle to do in the same turn, because at Alkford the enemy had us under siege with a not very powerful army, and we can attack them now with 2 stacks, but of course, because we're using 2 stacks, one of the stacks will have to be under AI control as well as the troops already inside the town. So we're going to be crossing our fingers and placing our faith in the AI to not do something too crazy. I've got them on the shootout stance mode. What I hoped was that it would cause them to just line up and shoot arrows at the enemy without advancing everything. But in practice that isn't what actually happens. It kind of maybe influences them to shoot more, but they'll still advance into melee as usual. So that means we need to follow their lead. I'm going to have to charge in all of my stuff at the same time to make the best use of the fact that the AI has charged in. And that means that it's the opposite of the previous battle, where we're not going to be using our archers to thin the enemy out before the fighting gets started. We're just getting in there. Either of our armies on their own would be enough to win this battle, so we're almost certainly going to prevail. We're just not going to do this in the completely ideal way that we could have done. The other thing that's not necessarily helping is that our allied artillery is shooting into the melees. I'm guessing the AI doesn't care at all about friendly fire, and here after seeing some of my cav get taken down by the catapult attacks, I can move them out, but as for the things under AI control, they are not so lucky. That's a bit worrying. However, because we have a massive advantage in this fight, we're able to win the battle quite quickly. I'm careful to get my cav in the enemy's routing path so we can grab as many captures as we can as they leave. Since the AI did engage the enemy right by the edge of the map, there was a risk that they'd rout without dying. Anyway, a bit later, everything is routing and we can end the battle. The result was okay in the end, really. None of our armies took that much damage, probably just because we had so much of an advantage. I'm sure it could have been a bit better if it allowed us to control everything, but oh well. Once that's done, we're going to go on to another co-op field battle because there's another army also near Alkford, and I thought while we're here, let's just take both armies to attack them as well. It's a similar situation to what we had before, an army that's much less strong than us, but this one has a unique feature. It's got 2 units of trolls, and those are some deadly key units we need to pay attention to. The risk being, if they just go and attack our ally, the AI won't really know what to do about them, and they might be able to wreak havoc. As the battle starts, I'm trying to set up for a shootout. The AI, as before, isn't really doing that. I've sent my horse archers up to try and target these wargs who are kind of isolated, in particular because their captain is amongst them, so we want this unit to be as weak as possible. Unfortunately, they're going to run away, and you can see my army is still way too far away from the action back here on this hill. I was going to try and set up to siege attack the enemy before we advanced, but right now it looks like we're going to have to follow the AI's lead again and try to just push in. You saw me there trying to give the AI an order to fall back. Sometimes if you click on their portrait and then give right-clicking orders on the map, they'll turn the whole army around and move it to where you clicked. But I think once the AI is kind of aggroed, that doesn't work anymore. Not really sure, obviously, it could certainly be a better system. We did see the AI kind of become more disciplined here. They have stopped and they are doing a shootout. It's just the nature of the shootout that becomes a problem. They're doing it at point blank range for starters. And when the enemy go and attack them, things get worse and worse, as we'll see. A couple of units have come over towards us, so we can deal with them in short order. At this stage, we ideally want to aggro as much stuff towards us rather than the AI as possible, because the AI probably can't deal with it. And if you look at the AI in the background, you'll see they're actually just falling back en masse, which is what I wanted them to do earlier. I didn't really catch this. It's because I have them on defensive stance. I thought I'll put them on defensive stance so they just stand there while I'll sweep in to attack them. What they've actually decided to do is go defend a hill on the other side of the map or something after the fight started. So that's causing disastrous results in the background that I'm not really focusing on. Meanwhile, we have been charged by these trolls. That's what I'm focusing on with my micro. I've got my siege pieces attacking them. I'm going to tell the catapults not to do that because the friendly fire potential is just too high. The ballistas can try to snipe away. And we've got another plan as well here. I've got a rare unit, the Pelagier Marines, and they're going to set up to throw jabs into the fight. Jabs seem like the natural response to elite things like trolls. Doesn't really seem to do anything, but it might have reduced their hit points. As you can see, the AI are long gone apart from the units that were already engaged, and they're in big trouble, so it's a real mess over here basically. It was about this point in the battle I started to appreciate something might be going wrong. I switched them to aggressive stance to try and reverse their current withdrawal. But yes, they've fallen back far enough that the archers and the ballistas over there are just being annihilated by the trolls. We are going to be losing a lot of stuff. Some full units are on the table for death. Bad stuff. Meanwhile, I've also sacrificed some Lindar guards to stop those trolls for a while. And maybe the ballistas are gradually killing them. We've killed most of the trolls at this stage. We might actually get away without losing a full unit against them. Elsewhere, the other fights are okay, but nothing particularly organised. Just need more micro to finish things off. Our allies decide to charge the front of the pikes with the cav. That's not the sort of aggression we wanted to see. I set them back to shootout stance after that to see if they do something more clever. We have defeated the units in front of us now, including the trolls, so I'm coming over to help out with these little fights, but they're not going ideally. The enemy's other troll units already taken out our ballista team. They've killed a whole bunch of our elite archers as well, and now we're just going to plow in there with some more stuff. By the looks of things, the AI is just going to try and melee them to death. Someone in the comments was saying that's the best way to kill them, but I really don't think it is. I feel like suiciding something and then using ballistas gives you fewer casualties overall. Anyway, there's another blob fight going on because one of their nearly invincible generals is in there. And at this stage it is just that guy and like one troll and maybe a berserker somewhere that are still alive and are keeping this battle going. Just need to wait until they eventually die due to RNG, and here we go, the battle ends, but it's a bit of a disaster. We killed only 800 enemies but lost about 500 troops on our own side. That's way too many. And as a result, these two armies are both now not particularly capable. All I can do is take them both and combine them, take the best bits of both to make one new field army, leaving this backup army of scraps. We actually do have a use for a backup army of scraps. I can leave them near Alkford, since there is also an army of scraps from Isengard over there in that fort. I think they were some survivors from a recent battle. So we can defend against them and anything else, and the big army will start moving south. In the Isengard turn, the armies that are coming up through the bridge I once so heavily defended are going to be a nuisance because they're able to go and besiege Dunlark there, and there's not much we can do to stop them at this stage. The only upside is that by attacking in the direction our reinforcements are coming from, it's faster for us to reinforce this position, and as it happens a reinforcement half stack is on the way. So next turn we'll have that army to use, and I've also got this army that was chasing stuff in our back lines. They're going to move into position to be next to the town and the enemy army. The plan here is that the nearby Dunedain force will probably start a battle and we can double team that first stack before the second enemy stack comes into play. Well, that's the idea at least, we'll see what actually happens. I also spotted yet another major enemy army, this one's filled with good units, to the south of Alkford, so that damages my plan to come and take Lond Angren here. Well, it doesn't necessarily damage it, I just thought, well, I'll attack it right now and take it with an immediate siege assault so that we're inside the walls. That way if the big stack comes over we might be able to use the walls. Obviously no trust in the auto-resolve here, however the result is probably what would have actually happened, so we can take that. And there we go. The risk though is that they'll go north instead, and now we don't have much up there, so just going to suffer from lack of numbers at this stage. There are just so many enemy armies all over the place. Now that the nearby port I was blockading is on our side, I'm going to send some ships over to check out Gondor, and on that note, I also got a diplomat over to Mordor, and I was able to buy some map information off them. I'm doing this because I just really want to know what's actually happening on the other side of the map. I had this vague feeling that Gondor had been destroyed, and I need to know how much of their territory is occupied by Isengard specifically. So we get the map information, there's a massive lag spike for some reason as it works that out. Then we get a billion reached messages as we now know about all sorts of famous locations. Now we can check out the map. It seems that Mordor have the eastern half of Gondor occupied. There's actually a little bit of Gondor that still exists. There's also that faction from somewhere or other that attacked us at Mithlond. They also control bits of Gondor's vague area. Overall, the good news is it's not Isengard controlling all of Gondor. That's what we didn't want to see. Since we don't have to fight Mordor in this campaign, it doesn't really matter if Mordor starts taking over the map. Anyway, back to business. At Heyrat, I decided this army is going to kind of be decommissioned at this stage. I'm going to send part of it to go towards Alkford to potentially defend. The other half is kind of just going to sit where they are right now and either go to help out with the siege to the north if it goes wrong, or go and attack in a more limited capacity to the southeast. Now we do get the Dunedain battle that I wanted. Well, we don't get it, I should say. Yet again, it's another one of these ally assist battles where there is no ally assistance. And it seems the Dunedain lose the fight. That means the siege continues. It's kind of okay since we got the result that our Dark Elves wanted. The Dunedain lost a bunch of troops and the enemy are weakened as a result. But because they didn't actually end the siege, we now actually have to fight the siege defense. You might think my stack outside could participate, and I would have assumed as well, but that appears not to be the case. I think the enemy might be making a night attack. I thought you could only do a night attack if you had a general with a certain trait in your army. It seems that's not the case, so we can't reinforce. The battle's not actually at night, so maybe it's not really a night attack. I don't know what's going on. I figured I'd fight this one manually, because there's a chance we can win this one on a technicality. I thought if we have ballista towers, we've seen before, ballista towers can set siege stuff on fire really quickly. We might just burn down their ram and siege tower and then be able to keep them out. Unfortunately, it doesn't really happen. We have no towers as the fight starts. I saw nothing shooting. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's that thing where the towers only work if you're outside the walls, the kind of glitched up thing we saw earlier in the campaign. So we go outside the walls, and indeed we do start to see a ballista tower shooting at their siege tower, so it's kind of happening. I'm not sure this plan would really have worked, because we'd still have to somehow stop their ladders. That's not exactly impossible because I may be able to sally out, touch the ladder carrying units, they'll drop them and forget about them. That can happen. But anyway, that's all hypothetical. Right now they're going to have a siege tower ladders and the gate open, so our couple of units are just going to eventually die as the enemy come in. Our general lasted a long time, perhaps helped by the fact that he kind of clipped into a wall at the back there and the enemy seemed to struggle to attack him. But eventually this fight's going to end. There was a slight bit of hope that maybe he'd get clipped into the wall so far that he'd be invincible and then we'd win on the time limit, but no, he eventually died unfortunately. So there we go, now this city is lost and that really sucks because now these enemies are inside the wall and we're stuck outside, so now we're the ones doing a siege attack. Plus there is still the other Isengard army in the area. They come over and go to finish off the Dunedain. This apparently goes quite badly for them. They do win their battle, but it looked like the Isengard troops lost about half their strength in the process. So now it's actually only 2 half-strength armies in the area. The sacrifice of the Dunedain is working out for us here. As you can see, they come over to challenge our army, and now the guys inside the town are reinforcing this, so I don't even know what's going on with the reinforcements. But basically, we just withdraw a bit, avoid battle, and that's fine because now our stack of reinforcements will be able to participate in this. We've got another situation to deal with at Alkford, because the big army to the south moved up and stood right outside the settlement without besieging it. So now we have to do something here, and really the best thing we can do is take the Heyrat army and try to use it against them, but we can't do that right now. So we're going to take this army of nearly dead things and just get out of there. The only other option would be to bring the Lond Angren force up, but that would be even longer of a move to make and be too defensive. We need something to be on the offensive at all times or we'll be here forever. So what we're going to do here is just run away effectively. I'm going to run back towards the Heyrat garrison and then try to combine it with some of our scraps, some of the better bits of the scraps, to form this army. This army is okay looking and they're now going to move out, ready to counterattack and generally react around the Alkford area. Does mean that Heyrat is undefended, but a lot of the stuff near that place went up to the siege in the north, so maybe that's okay. And here is the offensive move I wanted to make. We're going to go for Karas, taking a long route to get there to attack it from the south, since I thought that route would be clearer. I was wrong, there's actually an army on the road. They have so many armies, these Uruks, so we're going to have to deal with that on the way. And by the way, I am actually gradually making an army back in the west. So after a load of turns they'll be ready, and then a load more turns after that we can deliver them to the front lines. That area is where most of our recruitment options are available. We do have a lot of places that can recruit here nearer the front lines, but we just can't recruit much more because everything's drained of troops and it can take 10 to 20 turns to get new units available. Anyway, now we're going to react at the Dunlark situation. What I'm going to do though is the opposite of what I'd usually do. Here we could combine the armies for a siege draw out. Instead I'm going to do a siege and then attack the force outside, meaning this gets split into 2 battles. To be honest, I don't remember why I chose to do it like this, maybe influenced by the fact that some people in the comments were asking me to do it like this or do more siege attacks. So anyway, to start with, we've got 2 armies against the guys outside, and that second army again is going to be AI controlled. I'm just standing around as the battle starts. The enemy are gradually moving towards me through a forest and we're just bombarding them with stuff. I don't really want to move because I need my AI companion to come and stand next to me before we make any big plays. I've got the AI on aggressive mode, but they weren't being very aggressive and this was proving to be problematic. What they are actually doing is just kind of moving along the back of the map as if they were going to set up behind me. And that's not very useful because they're not going to be in position to participate in the battle, which is about to happen. I had hoped that by using aggressive stance they would go strong up the flank or something, or just run to where I was first, or just attack the enemy from their deployment zone, which would be fine as well. Anyway, so pretty much we're just going to be fighting with our first army as the battle gets started. We're being sniped from somewhere deep in the forest. Gonna send our Dunedain scouts to try and find them. Can't actually see them as I'm playing, but we might find them eventually. Got some annoying skirmish mode, should be off situations here. But the best thing that happened is at the very start their warg general, warg captain, charged in and died instantly. So now the rest of the fight will be easier. Taking a look in the trees, we can find their ballistas and give some waypoint orders for our horsemen to get over there at some point. And then it's just a classic grind. With the enemy's morale being lowered, this should be to our advantage. And as the grind goes on, the allied units begin to filter in and start taking part in the battle. Looks like we took out some enemy infantry on our left wing with a nice cav charge. Maybe our allies are going to help us out over there as well, since they're vaguely close. And now we wait. The enemy won't take too long to kill. They do have a lot of low quality units that can be surrounded and pounded just without maximum efficiency, since the AI units may or may not actually do it. Looks like I was trying to snipe away at this stationary pike unit with my ballistas and archers, but annoyingly the AI's thrown some horse archers onto the front of the pikes. They just love to do it, and now they're taking friendly fire, so I'm going to stop shooting because of that. A while later, we've worked our way through the woods, found everything and routed everything. There's the result. Wasn't too bad in the end, despite it being a bit of a mess. I think it could have been a little bit better, again, if we had everything under control, but that's just how this game is. So with that done, we now have plenty of units here with which to make a siege assault, one that will be somewhat contested since there is a half stack inside. I was about to go for it here, but you'll see I end up withdrawing from the assault and just not making it, because I thought I wanted to check some other things out first. In particular, if we delay the assault until next turn, I've got some really good units coming in as reinforcements, so I thought maybe I'll wait for that. But for reasons that I'll explain next time, I am going to go ahead and do that siege attack, so we'll see it at the start of the next part, because other things that happened this turn changed my priorities a bit. Well, we'll talk about that next time.